If you bought one of these stands, you got a great deal. And if you bought one of these stands, you got ripped off. Harbor Freight has had problems with their jack stands before. In 2020, there was a major recall because welds were failing. These stands are the new and safer replacements. The problem with these is that Harbor Freight is selling two very different versions of the same product and doing their best to hide that fact from the consumer. These sure look similar, and if you didn't know any better, you'd think they were the same thing. I posted a warning on Reddit about these stands, but I know a lot of you bought them last week when they were 35% off. The good news is that you have 90 days to return them and get the correct version. The two versions are built to different standards, and one version is inferior to the other. The deficiencies in the inferior version are what you'd expect to see in a counterfeit product, especially on the 6-ton stands. They look almost identical, they're the same price. They even have the exact same SKU number. The model numbers for both 6-ton versions are also almost identical. The website, of course, shows the model number for the superior version and the maximum lift height of the inferior version. The inferior version has a maximum lift height of 23 3/4 inches, and the superior version is 24 inches. The label on the inferior version was torn up before I bought them, but you can see that the gross weight is 15-point-something kilos, and the gross weight on the superior version is 16.85 kilos. Both versions are made in China. The inferior version has a warped base and wobbles. The superior version is flat and solid. The inferior version's handle is shorter and thinner. The superior version's handle has more length and girth. These are so similar, it's almost as if they're trying to confuse the customers into thinking they're the same. Even the rubber grip is just a little bit smaller on the inferior version. This is not a situation where there's an old version being replaced by a newer version. I found people complaining about inferior versions of these stands going back years. The casting on the post is different. The inferior version is noticeably rougher than the superior version. The superior post is about 13% thicker and about 3/8 of an inch longer than the inferior post. That results in the inferior post weighing about 4 3/4 pounds versus 5 1/4 pounds. There's simply less metal on the inferior post. On a tool like a jack stand, beefier is better. The only thing beefier on the inferior version that I found is the locking pin. The inferior base weighs just over 11 pounds, and the superior base is almost half a pound heavier. The inferior base is about 1/4 inch shorter, and the footprint on its base is almost 3/4 of an inch narrower than the superior version. A wider base should be a little more stable. In total, the inferior stand weighs almost a full pound less than the superior stand. These 3-ton stands are a little more interesting than the 6-tons were, because the inferior 3-ton jack is not quite as uniformly deficient as the inferior 6-ton. The inferior stand has a maximum height of 11 1/4 inches, while the superior stand has a maximum height of 11 3/8. The 3-ton stands share identical model and SKU numbers. Looking at the specs labels, we can see that the inferior stand is a little lighter once again, and the stands have different UPC codes. While making this video, I found a lot of reviews complaining about the two different versions of these stands, and a few other reviews that I'll highlight. Anonymous left a 2-star review complaining about labeling. They complain that these are rated by pair rather than per stand, and that's true. The 3-ton stands will hold 6,000 pounds if you're using both stands, and the 6-tons will hold 12,000 pounds, again with both stands. The rating is for the pair, which is why they're sold in pairs. Jason left a review and photo showing a catastrophic failure, but thankfully he wasn't under the vehicle during the rapid, unscheduled disassembly. Another 3-star review noted that they hadn't yet used the stands, but the price was good and they appeared well built. If a well-built, affordable product only gets 3 stars, I wonder what it takes to get 5. I prefer to leave reviews after I actually use a product, but that's just me. There were a lot of great reviews too, and the primary theme was that these stands perform well and are a good value, but the reviews for both versions were combined. Just like on the 6-ton stands, the inferior version's handle is a little shorter, 4 1/4 versus 4 3/4 on the superior stand. but on these they're about the same thickness, just over half an inch. Now we'll take a look at the posts on the 3-ton stands to see how they compare. Unlike the 6-ton version, the inferior post on this one is actually about 1/4 of an inch longer. It comes in at 10 7/8 versus 10 5/8. Now looking at the posts again, we have the same issue. The inferior stand has a significantly thinner post, and we definitely want to avoid catastrophic failure. The inferior post comes in at about 9/10 of an inch, and the superior version is about 1.1 inches. That means the superior post is about 23% thicker than the inferior post. And just like on the 6-ton stands, the inferior post casting is significantly rougher than on the superior post. You can really see the difference in the surface between these two, and it's even more apparent in person. The inferior post weighs significantly less. It's 2 pounds 4 ounces versus 2 pounds 14 ounces. That means the superior post is 28% heavier. Weighing the bases, we can see that the inferior base is just over 5 pounds, and the superior base comes in at just over 5 pounds 4 ounces. Combining the weights of the bases and the posts, the inferior stand weighs 7 pounds 4.5 ounces, and the superior stand weighs 8 pounds 2.5 ounces. The superior base stands about 1/4 inch taller at just over 9.5 inches, but the footprint of the inferior base is slightly wider, right at 10 inches, and the superior base is just over 9.5. Unfortunately, the inferior base isn't flat. It wobbles just like it did on the 6-ton model, while the superior base is flat and has no perceptible wobble. The safety pins on both versions are about the same thickness, but the inferior stand safety pin is a little longer. Just like on the 6-ton stands, the inferior stand's pinhole is drilled through the corner, and the superior stand's pinhole is drilled through a lot more metal, which should be more secure. The only other major area of comparison is weld quality, and I didn't really notice a difference between the two versions. The welds seem adequate, and neither version appears to be welded better or worse. So how big of a problem is this, and why are they selling two different versions of the same product? When used properly, the inferior version probably won't fail, but when serious injury or damage to valuable property is on the line, and these two versions are identical in price, I can't think of any good reason why you choose the inferior version. Really though, it's more the principle than anything. Nobody likes knowing that they got less for their money. Either the manufacturer is saving a buck and they're pocketing the difference, or they're giving Harbor Freight a better price and they're making a higher profit margin. The bottom line is that for all of us who bought the inferior version, somebody in the supply chain is making an extra buck at our expense.